evening. Several firearms were seized after 40 police raided a Dunedin gang headquarters this afternoon. The weapons were found in a paddock adjacent to the headquarters. They included 3 rifles, a sawn-off shotgun and a loaded pistol. Cannabis was also recovered. The raid was part of a police inquiry into the shooting of a woman in her South Dunedin home on Sunday night. Police say they're no closer to making an arrest. A Southland man who last week talked on Homes about his involvement in bird smuggling in New Zealand this morning made a brief appearance in the Invercargill District Court. 30-year-old Frederick Robert Angel was charged with breaching bail in connection with fraud charges recently laid against him in Dunedin. After submissions heard in chambers, 2 justices of the peace turned down his application for bail. He's remanded in custody to appear in Dunedin next Tuesday. All that glisters at the giant new Macraes mine in Otago isn't necessarily gold, but they have something there today that'll probably be worth its weight. It's the largest bulldozer in the world, and today it ripped into the central Otago schist at the mine site for the first time. Michael Lynch was there.
This is the stuff bad dreams are made of. A gigantic machine, nothing seems to stop. 110 tonnes, 800 horsepower of turbocharged diesel, and costing a mere $1,700,000. It's the biggest bulldozer in the world. At late 7 metres wide and 2.5 high, it pushes 35 metres of spoil at once and rips into rock that would normally take hefty blasting to shift. It's here at Macraes for this rock-breaking ability, just a small cog in a $43 million project. They may be protesting about gold mining on the Coromandel, but out here on the Moonscape Plateau inland from Palmerston, this mine represents 10 years of jobs for the boys, more than 100 of them. It's well on target for the first gold in November, and the owners have had the foresight to pre-sell the first 2 years of production at $720 an ounce. It's cutting really, because the market price is now down below $600. So they're ripping into it with a will.
Andrew and Helen Gardine were back home in Mataura today, planning ways to fight for the adoption of a 6-year-old Romanian girl. They've spent a month in Romania trying to adopt one of the orphans of the Ceausescu years, but they decided they'd be better off fighting for inter-country adoption rights from home. Kim Hurring visited them this afternoon.
One of the first jobs the Gardines had to do today was to pick up the family pets, Charlie and Blanco, from the neighbours who'd babysat them.
We don't want them to get
Andrew and his wife are expecting another child shortly, but they'd also hoped to bring home a Romanian sister for David, Joel, Anastasia and Rachel. They were denied a visa from the immigration department, but what they saw in Romania made them determined to continue fighting for it.
This is a humane act. We're not exploiting children, we are saving children from hell.
The Gardines have adopted overseas once already. David is from Colombia. Now they want to do it again with Dana, a 6-year-old, half Romanian, half African, who now lives in a place called Orphanage Number 6 and is about to be moved to another institution.
She's a lovely girl. She's quite tall. She's healthy, intelligent, doesn't talk much, very quiet, and people in the orphanage told us that she's very obedient and tidy. So I don't know how I'll deal with a child like that, but she'll be very easy to have in our family.
How does Dana feel about adoption and possible moving to New Zealand?
She's pleased and excited about it. She doesn't have any concept of what it means to be in a family.
And the Romanians have said to us categorically she has no future in that country. The future is prostitution or living in an institution for the rest of her life. No one will marry her, no one will employ her. There's so few Africans there, they're only transit as students. And we used to take her out from the institution to parks on Sundays and what have you. And she was so bright and bubbly, looking around the city and travelling in a car. And when we went to go back with her, her countenance failed and she was sad and she cried when we left. And we cried too.
9 New Zealand couples are still battling for adoption rights in Romania, but it's estimated there are 11,000 children under the age of 3 in institutions.
Farmers have voted to give $500,000 to scientists to find out how to control the spread of bovine TB in cattle, deer and sheep. They say New Zealand now has the highest rate of TB in cattle in our history, and unless the disease can be controlled, we could face an export crisis, Alana James reports.
The cattle look healthy, but because they graze right beside a forest, they're prime targets for getting TB from possums. Possum numbers have soared since the 70s. They're ruining the trees, and they've spread TB over a huge area. A quarter of New Zealand is now covered with them and their disease. Many have lesions. In cattle, the disease spreads through the lungs. Farmers say $1.5 million is needed for research to stop bovine TB spreading. They're putting up a third of the money, and they want taxpayers and the government to give the rest.
Well, if we can't get on top of TB and the possums are not controlled or substantially reduced, we're heading for major farm management problems and major trade problems, major damage to our native forests.
Traditional methods of killing, like hunting and poisoning, haven't controlled possum numbers. And now farmers want scientists to produce either a method of making the possums sterile or a vaccine for cattle. If we can't control the disease, the North Americans, who take 80% of our beef exports, may ban our meat.
My guess is if we make no progress within the next 3 years, that we will start having some difficulties.
Farmers say if the government won't pay up for TB research, then it won't be just farmers who'll suffer. The whole country will feel the loss of export markets and trade.
Right, Marama Hall at Otago University rang with the sound of some of Dunedin's top young musicians at lunchtime. 18 performers who'd been in the National Schools Music Contest recently put on a half-hour concert and showed off the style that took them to the finals. That's the note we end the programme on tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. Good night.